So moving on now to the walking human controversy that is Milo Yiannopoulos. So this guy, as you know, is now the former editor at Breitbart News. And he goes around talking hate speech, and he's come under fire for a recent video which has surfaced, and we'll show you a clip of that now.
This arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, which totally destroys, the understanding that many of us have of the complexities and subtleties and complicated nature of many relationships. People are messy and complex, and actually in a homosexual world particularly, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming of age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and a reliable and sort of a rock where they can't speak to their parents. Some of those relationships are some of the most
molestation to me.
It sounds like,
you know what?
It sounds like Catholic priest molestation to me.
And you know what? I'm grateful for Father Michael. I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it wasn't for him.
Oh my God! I can't handle it.
It's funny because
what is wrong with you, Ben? Come on.
So Nick, he's lost a massive book deal as a result of this. His invitation to speak at a major Conservative conference has been withdrawn. What do you think? Too harsh?
I think it's pretty interesting that Milo finally kind of went too far, I guess. I should say, I think we should be cautious about this because, guys, he's like a nuclear cockroach, I suspect. He's probably going to try and stick around for a while. It did force him to make the first apology he's ever made. I think the guys that actually did the podcast in the first place, they're these dudes called the Drunk Peasants who they don't strike me as especially political. They're definitely not like left wing. They're just kind of like beardy stoner kind of guys. They made a kind of a good point when they followed up and they said, what did you expect from Milo? Like they said of Simon & Schuster, you signed the guy. I mean, really, what did you expect? But I think at the same time, it's interesting to me that and I'm quite happy that pedophilia and any kind of implication of it is still you can't go there. Yeah. You can't go there. No. And Milo is such a cocky little brat, and he's so overconfident, and he's so convinced of his own intellect and rhetoric. In your opinion? Well, in my opinion, and these are all traits that, frankly, I totally revile.
That's right. Don't sue us.
I think he just ran his mouth off as usual, and he's so used to treading this I'm going to be shocking kind of ground.
Yeah, he thought he was untouchable.
He did, and that's been his MO. And really, I got to say, as many people will, sucked in, dude, because he's just the way that he pushes people's buttons and the real world consequences that has. It was getting way out of control.
Pretty fascinating character, though. Come on, you have to admit it. I mean, considering his background and his sexuality and the stuff that he's spewing out, usually don't hear that from someone with that sort of background. Right?
Certainly not from the right.
That's right.
That's part of the gimmick, though.
Yeah,
he'd been at it for ages, and he loves to do his very flopsy and limp-wristed in his delivery, and he loves to sort of harp on the gay thing. He does.
Yeah, he does.
He loves to talk about his predilection for black cock and all of this sort of stuff. He brings it up because he thinks it's kind of shocking, and I think he thinks it's interesting when bound up within his alleged kind of obsession with free speech and libertarianism, which are just... It's just fake. It's not really true. And I think it's really noteworthy that it was only relatively recently that he started mentioning his Jewish heritage out of the blue.
I didn't realise he'd done that.
I thought he was a Greco.
Yeah, I think
so he's born in Greece.
He's born in Greece.
He's raised in the UK.
Yeah, right.
He's basically raised a Catholic. But then he drops the maternal Jewish lineage thing.
Oh, right. To save himself. Yes.
Well, no, just to be able to say, and I'm a Jew.
Jewish.
So how could it be any how could what I'm saying be homophobic? I'm gay. It's for me, it's like very boring kind of rhetoric to me. I don't rate
sort of like covering your ass, because you're basically saying, well, if I come from this sort of background, I can make these sort of comments.
Yeah, that's right.
If I'm Jewish, I can say things that are
anti-Semitic,
and it should be okay.
Yeah, which is bullshit because you're selling yourself as an exceptional kind of, as an exception to the rule, So it's kind of like, that doesn't play any which way you slice it.
But what I found interesting about this whole thing is that this guy has said so much stuff, and he has said so much stuff to vilify so many different types of people. He'd go onto university campuses, he'd mock students in the audience who were of particular characteristics. For example, I think the one story that I came across was that he'd actually mocked a transgender student in the audience, right? He was banned from Twitter. I mean, he got banned from Twitter.
Yeah.
And you know how bad Twitter is for basically trolling Leslie Jones.
Yeah.
And so, he's said so much outrageous stuff. Feminism is cancer. I mean, I've got a whole list of it here. Why do lesbians fake so many hate crimes? He's encouraged people to purge the illegals. He says birth control makes women fat and unattractive.
Yeah.
This
Why
guy...
does he care?
He doesn't.
He is an Islamophobe, he's a misogynist, he's transphobic, and he engages in harassment. And it's only now that he starts to feel the consequences
because
of it.
you can't talk about fucking kids. It's very interesting. There's only one person that's ever gotten away with being a pedophile, really.
Who's that?
It's Michael Jackson.
Well, that's debatable.
No, you see,
That's
look at this.
allegedly.
I like Michael
Allegedly.
Jackson.
No,
I don't
wasn't
want to
gonna
admit
say
it.
that.
That's
No.
what's happening, my
No,
friend.
no.
That's your opinion.
No,
It's true,
I
but
wasn't
listen,
going to say that.
I'll tell you what Milo is. Milo is he's an internet troll basically that was 3D printed into real life. Okay, he admitted once and later retracted that his persona was actually run by like 44 different people. A total digital construction that grew out of 4chan. The one thing I'll give him credit for is he was smart enough to pick exactly the kind of punter that liked Donald Trump, and he wrote it. He was definitely clever enough to do that, but in my opinion, that's about where his cleverness ends. And I'll tell you what, that was a pretty fucking dumb thing to say on that goddamn podcast.
But where does he go from here, guys? Do you think this actually
he'll come back.
this elevates his status?
He'll come back.
I don't know, because I really think that as a taboo.
What's the name Milo? I always think about that movie Milo and Otis.
Yeah.
Milos?
No, I think he'll come back.
Milos, yeah.
I think he'll
Milos.
come back, and I think the way he put it, and I think the way he put the resignation
That
from
was
Breitbart
so-
was very
so
interesting
sad.
because, of course, there are a number of people at Breitbart, employees who were insisting that he be sacked or they were going to walk. And then the next day he comes out and says, I've resigned. And he made a really big point of saying, I wasn't pushed to go. This is my decision out of respect for my fellow employees.
You were
Big on
pushed.
it. He's
He'll
big on
come
it.
back. He'll come back. And I think...
He hasn't gone anywhere.
He will not. He will get another book deal. This is like the third book deal he's had. There's been no book. I mean, he's actually not published a book. He's got all these book
Oh
deals.
no, he posted a screenshot of like that he'd written 75,000 words or something. He posted it of his.
Well,
his
anyway, I just think
desktop.
I find it really bizarre. Look, I think that pedophilia is somewhere where you can't go. Obviously, that's something I believe in. But I think it's interesting that the alt-right people who are so in favour of free speech, you can say whatever you want about Muslims, say whatever you want about women, say whatever you want about anyone with a disadvantage.
But we're not pedophiles, damn
We're
it!
not pedophiles,
That's right.
and we won't let that be discussed. And I think that angle is the most interesting.
He
out
went
of this
too
whole
far.
thing.
He believed his own bullshit too much. Let's put it that way.
I don't know. He did try and put a fine point on it. I mean, just to be fair to him, which I don't really think you have to be, but he tried to say that it was about. He was tried to make a distinction between legal minors and children. Sexually developed minors was kind of what he said he was talking about. But
he's just talking from personal experience, and you really can't do that, and I understand that. But I think somewhere along the line, considering he is who he is, people are going to take it a certain way, and they're going to really run with it. So, sorry, Milo.
Well, there was a lot of people sitting there waiting for this.
Yeah.
And the drunk peasants, I got to give them like a little bit of kind of credit here, because they were so up in arms that they didn't break that story, even though they broke that story, which had actually come off the back of a previous podcast that Milo had appeared upon, and they probed deeper with it. And they
Probe deeper. That's
so to speak.
Fantastic.
But they were so pissed off that it hadn't come out when they did the show a year ago, which was viewed hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah.
It's not like nobody watched it. But I have to say, dudes, your podcast goes for like 2.5 hours. It's too fucking long. There was no journalist in the world could be bothered to trawl through that,
And that's
except the one
probably
that
an
really
appropriate
hates Milo.
cue for us to wrap up that conversation.